Hi everyone, just wanted to go over some work from last week, some quiz questions, and then also what we have for this week to come. So just a reminder that this is our last full week of class. We have class in week 8, but it only goes through Friday. So new second 8-week classes will begin on Saturday, a week from this coming Saturday. And so just be prepared for that with regard to any of your assignments that are due in week 8. Please just make sure you have that all finished up and submitted by Friday. So last week was a heavy week, especially if you're not a person that really likes math or statistics. But hopefully you were able to gain some information, some ideas about the statistical tests and whatnot that were noted in the textbook. And then also we had some discussion about more general items related to big data and the use of data, etc. You did pretty well on the quiz overall, so I'm guessing that the majority of you grasped the concepts, but if you do have questions after, we'll go through the quiz questions, but if you have additional questions, please feel free to reach out and I can help you with those. So this coming week, we're going to continue to talk a little bit about statistical testing, things like t-tests and ANOVAs and those types of things, but we're also going to look at the findings section, or the results section in a manuscript or in a journal article. So think about that results section and the importance of that, what we'll find in that area, how those are constructed, what goes into that area, etc. So in your writing assignment this week, you're going to look at that results section based on some of your articles that you've been looking at throughout the term. And seeing some of that information that's included in there. Obviously, this week we also have, I'm not seeing your discussion posted in here. Okay, fix that. Now your discussion is posted in here. It was in the discussion section, so if you are one that clicks on discussions to get to your discussion, you've probably already seen that, but I did add a link to it here within week 7 as well. And then we have our quiz and obviously this ed puzzle. So that's what we have for this week. Let's take a look at our quiz questions. So first quiz question, which of the following descriptive statistics is a population statistic, not a statistic of the sample? So interestingly, all of these things here are all really related to one another. Standard deviation, square root of the variance, which actually is the standard deviation, and variance are all things that are very specific to the sample. So a specific sample statistic, looking at your data sample and the variance, the standard deviation, etc. The descriptive statistic, and it's on page 147 in the textbook, that is descriptive of the population and not of just your sample, is known as the standard error of the mean. So the standard error of the mean is actually the standard deviation divided by the square root of n. So that's the actual equation that you would use to come up with that standard error of the mean. But it is descriptive in that it describes the population as a whole, as opposed to just simply the sample data that you have. So all of these are related, but standard error of the mean is a little bit more broad, descriptive of your population. Next question. So which of the following requires non-parametric analysis? So in our textbook, we talked about parametric analysis and non-parametric analysis. And we're typically not going to use, if we have a normal distribution in our data, we're going to use parametric analysis. When we're not going to use that, so when we're going to use non-parametric analysis, is when we have unequal variances in our data. We don't have a normal distribution. So in that case, that's when we're going to use this specific type of analysis, as opposed to the other answers here: interval scaled data, ratio scaled data, normally distributed data. All of those would be more appropriate for a parametric analysis. But when we have that unequal variance in our data, that's when we will use a non-parametric analysis. And that's actually in the text on page 1. Let me see if I can find it for you. Somewhere between, I'm going to say 1 150 and the end of the chapter. Oh, right there, 152. So that's step 2 on 152 where it talks about that. Next one, when making a statistical decision, the researcher fails to reject the null hypothesis if the value of p is less than alpha. So it talks about in there about your p-value, and p-value is very important to statistical analysis and research data, quantitative research data. So when your p-value is greater than alpha, that is when we are going to retain the null hypothesis. So our answer here is false. If the p-value is greater than alpha, we would retain the null hypothesis. If the p-value is less than alpha, we would reject the null hypothesis. So this is all spelled out to us on page, and again, I'll give you the page right out of the textbook so you can take a look at it, if I can find it. There's a few different sections where they talk, oh, there it is, on page 147 on the right-hand side of the page, the right-hand side of the page, where it talks about the p-values and alpha, typically you're going to see alpha set at 0.05 or 0.01, but it depends on the study, it depends on the data, etc. But your p-value is going to drive that whether you are rejecting or retaining the null hypothesis. So our answer here, the researcher would fail to reject it if it's less than alpha. That's false in that instance. Last one. Which of the following is the best measure of central tendency when evaluating ordinal data? So think about ordinal data and what it is. You're talking about something, an ordered set of data, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. So something that is, does not have unequal variance, is very ordered and straightforward. And so when we think about median, our median value, if we have a set of data, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, that median value is going to be our best measure of central tendency. So think about these three options, mean, median, and mode, and what the purpose of those are, to find out what is the most accurate way to measure the center data point. What is the center data point? Well, when we're doing a set of data that's ordinal, that's very structured and orderly, that center data point will be the median, because you have that structure. Now, if you had, let's say you had a set of data that was 1, 1, 1, 5, 10, our median in that case is going to be 1. So that's probably not the best. We have unequal variance there, so it's probably not the best way. A median wouldn't be the best way to evaluate central tendency. Perhaps a mean would be in that case, or perhaps the mode. But in this case, because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, that middle data point, the median, is going to be the best way to measure central tendency in a data set like that. And that's why we have 3 different measures of central tendency, because each type of data, each data set is going to have a different, it's going to look differently, and one of the 3 of those is going to be the best way to measure central tendency. However, you can measure the mean, median, and mode of any data set. It's just a matter of knowing which one is the best representative of the center point of that data set. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Let me go back to the classroom here. If you have any questions about this week, what we're doing this week, please let me know. As you all know, the quiz questions tend to be based most on the information from the text, because we're not using that as much for discussion, just because of the nature of the information. So if you have questions on the content, the statistical tests, graphs, tables, those types of things, please let me know before you take the test. I'm happy to try and help fetter those out for you. But otherwise, let me know if you have any other questions on the quiz from last week, and I'll see everyone in the classroom. Thanks.